Landman here. I study how people build financial ground and how it washes away when they're not looking. This is the final video in the first series, and I want to use it to do something specific. Not introduce a new concept, not add another framework, but to synthesize to look at everything we've covered across the series and ask one question with real numbers attached to it. What is the actual cost in compounded dollars of status spending versus soil building? Not philosophically, not abstractly. In the math that shows up in your net worth statement at 55. In the retirement projection that either matches your income history or doesn't. In the ground that is either there when you need it or isn't. We have covered 10 patterns across the series. Hedonic adaptation, lifestyle inflation, spending traps, the moving property line of enough, the parable of the man who sold his land, fixed cost architecture, the compass test, delayed investing, the unbuilt fence. Each of these is a named mechanism through which financial soil erodes. Each one operates quietly. Each one feels reasonable in the moment. And together, compounded across a 20 or 30-year earning career, they produce an outcome that most high earners find genuinely shocking when they see it mapped against what their income history would have suggested was possible. Let me build the full picture. The average high-income earner household income between $90,000 and $130,000 will earn somewhere between $2.7 and $3.9 million across a 30-year career. That is the income. Now here is the question that almost nobody asks until it is too late. How much of that $2.7 to $3.9 million resulted in permanent financial ground? In assets that exist independently of the income that created them? In soil that holds and compounds and remains? The research on this is sobering. The median net worth of a household earning between $100,000 and $150,000 annually, people who are unambiguously high earners by any standard, is approximately $220,000 to $260,000. Against a 30-year earning history that produced somewhere between $3 and $4 million in gross income. That means somewhere between 92 and 95% of the income that flowed through their hands over a working lifetime left no permanent trace. It was spent. It was consumed. It was absorbed by a lifestyle that matched the income, by fixed costs that grew with the income, by status spending that felt like the natural expression of the income, and by delayed investing that waited for conditions that never quite stabilized. This is not a moral statement. This is a measurement. The soil that could have existed does not. And the question the wealth psychology framework asks is not why didn't you do better? The question is which specific mechanisms were responsible. Because named mechanisms can be addressed. Vague failure cannot. Now here is the synthesis number. If a household earning $100,000 annually addresses even 3 of these 6 mechanisms partially, not perfectly, what changes? Let's say they hold lifestyle inflation to 25% of each income increment rather than 75%. Let's say they complete an annual fixed cost audit and recover $400 monthly. And let's say they eliminate the preparation trap and begin investing immediately rather than waiting 4 years for conditions to stabilize. The combined structural recovery across these 3 partial interventions is approximately $900 to $1,100 per month of redirected capital. At 7% over 25 years, $900 per month compounds to over $750,000. Over 30 years, it exceeds $1,100,000. $1 million not from a higher salary, not from a lucky investment, from 3 partial structural corrections to mechanisms that were already running. This is the math of status versus soil. Status spending the rider in the valley, the upgrade cycle, the signal category, and the compass test produces a feeling that lasts months. Soil building the planted acre, the protected fence, the deliberate deployment of the income increment produces ground that lasts decades. The math does not make these equivalent. It separates them by a factor of 7 to 10 over a 30-year compounding window. Here is the controversial observation I want to close the series with. The wealth gap in this country is discussed almost exclusively as an income gap, as if the primary variable is how much flows in. The data suggests otherwise. Two households earning identical incomes over identical careers regularly arrive at retirement with net worth that differs by a factor of 5 to 10. Same income, same duration, radically different ground. The variable is not income. The variable is the erosion rate, how much of the income was converted to permanent soil versus absorbed by the mechanisms we have named across the series. Addressing the income gap without addressing the erosion rate is like adding more water to a bucket with a structural hole. The level rises briefly. The drain continues. Landman's closing framework for the series is called the deposit rate. Not the savings rate, which is a snapshot. The deposit rate, which is a lifetime average. What percentage of every dollar that ever entered your household across your full earning career was converted to permanent financial ground? The target that changes retirement outcomes meaningfully is not 50%. It is not 30%. Research on households that achieve financial independence before traditional retirement age consistently shows deposit rates between 15 and 25% of gross lifetime income, not of discretionary spending, of gross income. $1.05 permanently planted. The other 4 lived on. That ratio maintained across the erosion mechanisms we have named produces the ground. The land does not care what you earned. It only registers what you kept. Every mechanism we have covered this series is a named pathway through which kept becomes consumed. And every mechanism we have covered has a structural counter-offense, a compass, a parallel planting, a 90-day window, a fixed cost audit, a soil test, a deliberate property line. The tools exist. The math supports their use. The only remaining question is whether the acre gets planted this season or whether the conditions still aren't quite right. They are right. They have always been right. Plant now. If this series changed how you see the ground beneath you, subscribe. That's all. Just subscribe. New ground here every week.